everyone, it's Lucas back with another Big Brother Spoilers intro. Today we're diving back into Survivor 48 with one of the most influential people of the season, Shauhin Davari. Josh sits down with Shauhin, the former alternate that made it onto the island and became one of the key strategic voices in the early game. From navigating the Strong Players Alliance to managing swap dynamics to his push against Kyle that nearly reshaped the entire season, his journey on Survivor 48 was sharp, complex, and filled with moments that fans still talk about today. In this interview, Shauhin opens up about his casting story, what it was like preparing as an alternate multiple times, the decisions he stands by, and the ones he'd rethink, as well as how he felt watching the season back. He also reflects on the vote that sent him home. He reads on the game's power players, and how close Survivor 48 was looking to become very different. And of course, he gives his thoughts on Survivor 49, the medevac, the swaps, the idle play dynamics, plus who he thinks is going to win the season, who he is rooting for, and which players remind him of his own season. It's thoughtful and full of great behind-the-scenes perspectives. So let's get into it.
Shauhin, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to talk with you. Hard to believe it's been a year and a half already since Survivor 48 filmed. So how have you been since everything wrapped?
Wow, you really hit me with that, huh? Yeah, did not realize it's been a year and a half since we wrapped. You know, the weirdest part about the experience in a way is you finish your experience and then you have to wait 10 months, especially if you're on an even numbered season, to see how they're going to edit it, how it's going to be portrayed, how people are going to receive you, how your family's going to react to stuff. I made the decision to not tell my friends and family how I did. And obviously, you know, I went home in the penultimate episode, the one, you know, right before the finale. And so a lot of them thought that I was going to win the show. And then watching them go through the stages of grief afterwards was kind of a weird and interesting experience because I had already like healed from it, right? Like I knew that I didn't win back in, you know, July. So I had the opportunity to kind of heal and figure it out, but watching them go through it over the past couple months was kind of interesting. And, you know, I have a lot of love that surrounds me all the time. So I got to move through that experience in a really awesome way. I had a lot of support from all over the place. And so really enjoyed what Survivor was able to provide me. And then over the summer, just, you know, had an amazing time traveling all over the place and running into people. The beard makes it so that I can't hide at all, right? Like if you see the beard walking down the street, it's pretty recognizable. And so it's been really cool to see the fans reach out. And yeah, it's been an amazing experience. Survivor definitely changed my life. And if you like, you know, even if you like your life, it's going to change your life, whether you want it to or not. An experience like this definitely changes you. Learn so many things about myself and what I was capable of and my confidence and all of that stuff has definitely changed quite a bit. So yeah, good question.
So what was the most difficult part of transitioning back to normal life after the show, whether that was after the filming or the airing of the show?
Transitioning back to real life after the filming was huge for me, a huge transition, because before the filming, I actually had a nickname that I went by most of the time. And about a year before the filming, I changed that nickname back to my name that was given at birth, Shauhin. And in the whole entire casting process, I actually didn't tell any of casting that I used to go by a nickname. I just gave them my real name, which is Shauhin. Or, you know, some people pronounce it Shauhin, which is fine. The thing that drives me nuts is Shauhin. That drives me insane. So, hi, everybody. It's Shauhin or Shauhin, but not Shauhin. Okay? The Shah, let's get rid of that. Now, the reason I bring that up is because being out on the island, they didn't call me my nickname. They only called me Shauhin or Shauhin. And throughout that process, I realized one of the reasons I wanted to switch back, maybe internally, that I didn't really recognize was that person that doesn't exist anymore. And Shauhin does exist now. And that's the guy that I really enjoyed being out there. I enjoyed hearing my full name and being that full version of myself. And that version of myself was the only version that now existed. I was split between the nickname version of myself, this person who used to exist, who, maybe used to hide parts of himself because he was afraid of how people would react, and then this other version of myself, which was this new / old version of myself. And going out there for 30 days total, 35 days total, or whatever, and only being called Shauhin that entire time. When I landed back in Los Angeles, and my friends of many years would call me by my nickname, or my family would call me by my nickname. It was one of those things that before I left, it was fine. It's not a big deal. I don't care what you call me, but it's fine. And then it was like, oh, wait, no, you're going to call me Shauhin now. That's my name. That's the thing that I want to be called. And a lot of other transitions had to happen. A lot of versions of myself had to be let go of that didn't exist anymore. And people who wanted me to act in ways that I no longer was had to now accept this new version of me or kind of move on. And that, I think, happens for a lot of Survivor people. I think a lot of us go out there and, Survivor gives you this great test. It gives you this amazing opportunity to see what you're made of. And, confronted with that, when you get back, now you feel a responsibility to this new person to kind of explore that. And, I wouldn't be the first person in reality television to go lose themselves a little bit. I had a very good structure around me, so I didn't lose myself. But I see it happen in other reality stars where they go on the reality thing and they come out and it messes and warps their brain a little bit in a way that really messes with them. And for me, I was really lucky. It came back and it didn't warp my brain. It showed me a different version of myself that I wanted to continue to carry forward. So, yeah.
Was the nickname Legs demonstrated by your name here on the call?
Yeah, Legs Davari. Yeah, exactly right.
So speaking of nicknames, the Riz got in the season. So let's get into the current season. So how have you been liking Survivor 49? Tell me all your thoughts. Who are your favorites? I
think a slow start and a fiery finish is kind of standard for what old school Survivor was, right? That I don't know if you remember watching, the 30s and the 20s, like those first 3-4 episodes are often a little bit of a slog because you have to try and get to know 18 people. You don't get depth, you only get breadth. And we had the disaster tribe of Kele, and the difficulty there is you're spending time with people who then go home. And so you're not looking forward to seeing the next week, right? Then you get devastated by a snake bite on top of all of the other things. And so you're spending so much time with just 2 or 3 people or 4 or 5 people, and then they go home. And then you're left with only 2 people from that tribe making the merge. And where, I think this season has a difficulty is not only did you only get left with those 2 people, but then one of them goes home even, early within the merge, Alex. So this whole season, and there's a reason why Sophie has been so loved. She's an incredible, person. Like, she seems so fun, so interesting. And she's, had to carry the entertainment value of the season on her shoulders, and she's a young woman. She's not, she's an excellent storyteller, and she's been vulnerable, and she's actually played, I think, a really incredible game. I think that she has a really good shot to win this whole thing. And, but I think, it heating up here and seeing Rizzo pull some antics at these last couple tribal councils, you're starting to really see why some of these people are invited back for 50. And I've enjoyed the season. I think that it's also had the really difficult thing of having season 50 loom so large right above it, right? That you just can't, in a way, compete with all of these people that they're bringing back for season 50, right? Some of the legends of the game are coming back. Some people that we really are excited to see are coming back. And so it's hard to have that looming over your entire season and have it not be one of those things in the back of your mind. I mean, obviously people know Rizzo and Savannah were invited back for 50, or a lot of people know. If you're listening to a podcast like this, you probably know, right? You're not, You're not like a casual fan if you're listening to something like this. So even having that hang over the season is, it's difficult because you're watching with a lens of knowing, all right, well, Rizzo and Savannah are probably safe, right? So even like the last episode where Sophie goes home, I'm watching that episode and I'm going, okay, it's between Sophie and Savannah, but if I didn't know Savannah was on 50, I might think like, shit, is it Sophie? Is it Savannah? But because I know Savannah's on 50, I'm not really concerned. Like, I'm not really worried about what's going to happen here. So that hanging over the season, I think, makes it a little difficult to enjoy the season. But I will say, not for nothing, when I was watching Survivor during the pandemic, there were a couple seasons that were spoiled for me. And I actually really enjoyed watching them knowing who was going to win. Because I got to pay more attention to the winner. And so as far as like learning what the game of Survivor really looks like and what a winner's game looks like, it was really nice to watch those seasons knowing that this person won the game. I don't know if we have a winner in Savannah and Rizzo. In some ways it's like, okay, I can see their win path. I can see both of their win paths. But I can also see a win path for Steven. I can definitely see a win path for Sophie. I think Christina has a hard time with win equity at this point. Am I forgetting somebody?
Sage.
I could see Sage with a win path. I think there is a win path there. Who does she win against, though? I think she could beat Steven and Christina with a good tribal, with a good final tribal. So there's still a win path for, I think, a decent amount of people.
Yeah, and you brought up the snake bit earlier that I wanted to talk to you about that. So I was in New York for the RHP live show. Were you in San Francisco for that?
Hold on one second. Turn on this light. I don't know if are we actually filmed? Is that what's happening? Do you put out the video version?
Yeah.
Well, that's isn't it? Okay. Well, the question was one more time.
Were you at San Francisco for the episode 3 when Jake was medically evacuated?
I was not. No, I haven't done any of the big watch parties. But what I think.
What were your thoughts watching that, the Jake medevac?
I mean, what great television. Like, as far as from like a TV standpoint, like, the emergency room visit and the doctor and the intensity and all of that. As far as like why they pulled him or whatever, like all that stuff's beyond my pay grade. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have a comment about that because, like, I don't know. It's like there's nothing he can do. There's nothing they can do. It's just like that's the rules that they ended up going with. And bummed for Jake. I think he probably wasn't going home anytime soon. That certainly sucks for him. And what a way to go out, like a 1 in a billion chance of you getting bitten and all that hubbub and all that garbage. Bummer didn't catch it on tape. Like, usually I would have assumed they might have had it on tape. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if I have a whole lot of thoughts about the Shoe Bandit other than just like, he seemed to want to do fun bits and have a good time out there. I think it's definitely interesting that like, the evolution of the game 30 seasons later, after Russell decided to burn people's socks and dump out people's water, we have someone who's hiding people's shoes. And I think that speaks to kind of what Survivor really is about and like how the game has evolved. And some people might not like that, right? Some people don't like the fact that we don't have Russell Hanses on television anymore. I like that. I rather would enjoy watching people that are mostly good be forced to do bad things and how they deal with the ethical implications of those things and how they justify those things, rather than watching someone who has, fewer morals and scruples doing, what is like emotionally devastating manipulation like he did on season 20 and was just like horrible towards people and got kept because of his horribleness, not because of anything else. So I know that a lot of people are really upset by like some people, I shouldn't say a lot, are upset by the evolution of the game. They hate that the game has evolved. And I think those same people exist for hold on one second. I don't know why that keeps happening. Can you hear that on your end?
Yeah, I can.
Damn it. Where is the do not disturb button on this computer? There we go. Okay. I know a lot of people have a difficulty with the evolution of Survivor, and I kind of liken it to football. That like when football was invented, they didn't have the forward pass. And when they brought the forward pass, they were like, this is changing the game entirely. And it's like, Yeah, man, because otherwise it's just boring. And we need to have new things. And people are clamoring for an old school season, or they want, you do a season with no advantages. There's too many. It's one of those things where it's like, I don't think that you want that. I don't think that you want old school players. I actually don't think that you want people that aren't super fans, because then they do dumb things out there and you're not watching high level gameplay. You're watching them suffer from things that people have suffered from for 30 seasons of the show. And it's the same shit over and over and over again. I saw something, the dumbest take, the biggest L take I've ever seen is, I want more camp life. No, you don't, dummy. You don't want more camp life. Trust me, you don't. They don't look like they're hungry. Yeah, because showing people be hungry is just not that interesting. Like, they could show us being hungry, but it's just not that interesting unless the hunger has something to do with the gameplay. And also, not for nothing, we know we're going to be hungry out there. Just like people know that they're going to play zone defense. And so they prepare for that. And now they're at the next level of the game. And you can say everything you want about the new era being this or the new era being that, or the old era being this, or the old era being that. Comparison is the thief of joy. Sometimes it's just like, enjoy the game and enjoy what's being put in front of you and figure out the game instead of being so frustrated by it. And also, the internet's a terrible place. And the way that people talk to me in person versus the way that people say things online, the confidence that people have on the interwebs is just out of control, right? So there you go.
And going back to Jake, after Jake was medically evacuated and Jeremiah was voted, Alex and Sophie, like you mentioned, were the last two members of their tribe. How do you think that your tribe, Logi, would have went if you guys lost 4 pre-merge tribals?
We wouldn't have.
You wouldn't have?
Are you kidding? I think that if you put Logi up against any tribe, maybe ever, we have a hard, I don't think we're losing and getting third against any 3 tribes. Like our tribe was pretty dominant. We had a really good working relationship. And I don't just mean like from the athletics standpoint, because I think one of the things that's underrated when it comes to tribe dynamic is how well you communicate. When Jeff says, I'll give you a minute to strategize, he means 1 minute. Okay. He doesn't mean 5 minutes. He means 60 seconds. Okay. Maybe sometimes he'll give you a minute 30 if it's a complicated challenge, right? How you communicate and what you communicate in that minute matters so much, because if you come up with the wrong strategy, which is what happened, by the way, when we got swapped and Vula lost that first challenge, the reason we lost is because of poor communication during that minute to strategize. We chose the wrong strategy, which was putting Big People and Thomas, one puzzler, on the puzzle, and then having the other 2 puzzlers, me and Camilla, try and figure it out with Camilla on my shoulders. Stupid strategy, bad strategy. Okay, we lose, right? But Logi, man, the way we talked to each other, the way we worked it, I wish they would have shown it. But the thing is if they would have shown Logi talking in that minute to strategize, you would have known we weren't losing a thing. Like, it was smooth, it was easy. Me and Joe and Star and Bianca and Thomas and Eva, like every single one of us knew, like, okay, cool, this is my strength. I'm gonna do this. You should do this. You should do that. Like, it was a really beautiful thing, and that started with the Marooning Challenge. Like the Marooning Challenge, when he said, let's give you a minute to strategize, we fell into it really well. And that's actually, part of the erased gameplay that just doesn't ever get seen out there is how much do you choose to show during the strategy session, and how much do you withhold because you don't want them to see how maybe strong you are, even though that you're their own tribe mates, but you also want to give them enough to where you're going to be safe. And you also don't want to be pushy, because if you're pushy and then you come up short and whatever, like that's a whole part of the game that just never really gets seen or never talked about. Like, for example, the third challenge, the collar challenge, when we walked in there, the plan was me not competing, that I was supposed to sit. But when I saw that it was a collar challenge, and I, coach communication for a living, right? Like big communication, being loud, that is my skill set for sure. And on top of that, I saw that it was a slide puzzle, and I studied slide puzzles. I knew the algorithm to solve a slide puzzle really fast. And then I saw that it was tarps and hammocks. I remember looking at Bianca, who was supposed to play and I was supposed to not. And I would just be like, let's give you a minute to strategize. And the first thing I said was, Bianca, I'm doing this challenge. You're going to have to sit. I'm sorry. But if we lose, I'm going home. I was like, we're not losing this challenge. We will win this challenge. I am not concerned. I just need to be the caller and I'll call my shot. That type of stuff is pretty wild to do.
Yeah.
When you have the confidence and you know you're not going to lose, like then you call your shot. So what would we have done if we went to tribal? I don't know. Probably it would have been Eva or Star that went home. I would assume, just because me, Thomas, and Bianca were pretty tight. Thomas, I, and Joe were pretty tight. So I don't think that any of us were really in trouble. I had no interest in getting rid of Bianca. I think Joe and Eva might have wanted to go in that direction, but I think I probably would have persuaded them to either get rid of Star or Eva if we went to tribal first.
So let's get into last week's episode. So Steven, he went on the strenuous journey. What did you think of Steven's journey he went on?
What was I am very confused. Let me put it this way. I'm very confused by what the tribe was thinking there, because we had a similar moment on our season, right? Mary's in trouble. She's clearly on the bottom, and a boat arrives, and Mary's like, and I don't want to go on the journeys. My strat, I definitely didn't want to go on the journeys. They were nerfed on our season. And now they've actually become, if I went back out, I would go on the journeys. Now I would fight to go on the journeys now. But, Mary raises her hand, and it's like, all right, well, now everybody's got to raise their hand, because we definitely don't want Mary to go. It's saying that it was strenuous. Maybe that scares off one of the worst athletes, but like Savannah's an athlete. Rizzo's fine. Like, Sophie's fine. Like Sophie's hell of an athlete, and the other Sophie is fine. Like, I was confused by that. Maybe they were all super comfortable. I think Sophie B making the decision of not going makes sense. Like you have a steal, right? Like you can steal their shit and nobody knows you have it. So maybe it's nice for that to happen, because then that ups your gameplay. From Rizzo and Savannah's perspective, maybe they don't see Steven as much of a threat. Like maybe they don't really think he is a threat. He's just a nice person that they know that they can get everybody to vote out, right? So there are people that are like that too. So maybe it's not worth it to like risk their game to go out there, but was definitely more than surprised that nobody else rose their hand, and that he just that Sage, his ally, just basically got to be like, yeah, go for it, like go nuts. I think he was surprised too. I think he definitely was like, really? You're going to let me go on a strenuous journey? Like, I'm going to be fine. So yeah, surprised for sure. But,
yeah, so Steven won that advantage. Then he went on to win the reward challenge, and he took Christina Rizzo to eat spaghetti. You had quite a few food rewards in your season. What was your favorite food reward? What would you want your ideal?
Waffles. Fried chicken and waffles. Cringe, internet. I don't give a shit. They're savory. They're sweet. They're what you want to eat. God, everyone cringed so hard. It's so annoying. It's so cringe. Not everyone. I shouldn't say everyone. 5% of the internet lost their damn mind. And I don't care that you lost your mind. Okay? It was fun. Have some fun. What happened to fun? But yeah, the fried chicken and waffles was delicious. It was awesome. Super fun. Obviously, the loved ones letters was really important to me, because, you get to see your loved ones letter read on national television, and they get to be a part of that. That one's a little, a little savory and a little sour, if you will, savory and sour for me, because that's obviously the episode where I went home. And I think the loved ones visit is one of the reasons why I went home. I got a little comfortable with how much food I had in my stomach, and kind of lost sight of what was really important there.
And then it was Sophie who ended up getting voted out. What were your thoughts on Sophie's gameplay, and why do you think that they ultimately voted her out? It was a 6-1 vote. Somebody's got to make a wrong move there. 6-1 vote at the final 7.
Yeah. I loved watching Sophie. From an entertainment perspective, I found her hilarious. I found her confessionals really good and interesting. She had a good read on the game for the most part. She was making moves and wanted to get to the end. And her communication, I had messaged her earlier in the season. I can't remember if it was episode 2 or 1 or something like that. But she was the one that was in charge of controlling the challenge, like calling what the people would do. And the way that she communicated was so excellent, like calm, cool, and direct and clear with her communication. And it led her tribe to winning that challenge. And this is something that kind of goes ignored by the large commentary crowd, the internet, the whatever. they don't pay attention to that type of stuff as much as I think it actually does matter. That, you know, when you get back from a challenge and you lose or you win, but that person was so integral to your tribe doing well, and not because they were just strong, which is what we easily pay attention to, but because they were the glue that made sure that everybody was doing the right thing, and they talked to people in a way that actually got them to do the thing, instead of talking to them in a way where they, you know, might have felt discouraged or like pressured or whatever. So really, really enjoyed that maybe unheard of gem about Sophie's game, especially because early she didn't get a whole lot of screen time. As far as like why they all voted her out, I think it's pretty clear. I think that she was a threat. And I think that one of the things about going home in the 7 spot, 8 spot, 6 spot, stuff like that, I think sometimes the edit has to nerf your game because they have 1,300 hours of footage. They show us about 9 hours of gameplay, right? When you take away all the challenges, you take away all the B-roll footage, you're not getting everything. You can't even get a fraction of it. And I remember this moment when I was out there on day 2 or 3, and I was like, whoa, wait a second. The time that has elapsed so far is like triple, quadruple the amount of time that a full season of Survivor is when you sit down to watch it. Oh, and there's 3 tribes, and there's 18 people. They're not going to show anything. Like, it hit me only when I was out there how little was really going to be shown. I mean, 23 days of time out there for me, right? And maybe I got, 40 minutes of screen time total, but 23 days of my life happened out there. And they showed me on television for like, the total confessional time at the end of the seasons are like 12 minutes, 15 minutes if you're a fucking superstar. And so just to give that context and understand, like, and in that, and Sophie obviously like a little bit nerfed in the beginning and really came on strong, and then all of a sudden is now off our TV screens. And we should all be so bummed because her face card is unbelievable. And, great confessionals and such a good, I think, read overall in the game that she is a threat, challenge threat, social threat, strategic threat. You can get everybody on board to vote her out. And, she crossed somebody that wanted revenge. Revenge isn't always the best option, right? But if you're getting revenge on somebody who would win the game, that seems great. That's a great option. I will say, like, I think Sophie made a little bit of a mistake in talking to Sage, in the way that she talked to Sage. For someone who I think had excellent communication early in the game, I think this is the point in the game where, the food starts to wear on you. The fact that you've been sleeping outside, the lack of creature comforts, all that stuff starts to wear on you. And I think if it was early in the game, Sophie would have handled that conversation with Sage with a little bit more understanding. And instead, she was upset with Sage's level of upset, right? Sage was mad. Sage had every right to be mad. Let Sage be mad. Let Sage be upset. And then listen to that upset. I remember watching Millennials versus Gen X. I'll never forget the moment on the beach where Adam Klein looks at, I think it was Taylor, and says, I fucked you. I'm sorry. I fucked you. And the edit believes it, but it's just like, it's such a great moment because it shows the power of addressing the elephant in the room, falling on your sword, full blast, and Adam goes on to win that game. And Sophie seemed like she was trying to she was upset with how upset Sage was. Instead of just apologizing, acknowledging that Sage was right and that Sophie did screw her over and did ruin her game, and then from there, then you can build that relationship back to, but there's so much game left. We're at 7. Like, there's plenty of time to make moves and do things. Like, making a move too early is actually a bad thing. That's bad gameplay. Making a big move and taking out your number 1 ally. And I think eventually Sophie in that conversation, and she might have, by the way, but eventually in that conversation, you can go, look, like, Jawan was taking credit for your gameplay. And if you sit next to him at the end, you probably don't win. And you also probably don't win his vote if you vote him out. So in a lot of ways, we did you a favor, right? Like if they would have voted Joe out on my season, that wouldn't have been necessarily the worst thing in the world for me, because Joe going to the jury without my knowledge, he's probably standing for me super hard with the jury. Jawan is probably gets back to Ponderosa and is like, Sage is the best thing since sliced bread, right?
Yeah.
Not a horrible thing for Sage's game, right? And not for nothing, the most recent person to go to the jury has the most influence in a lot of ways. And, you know, Jawan was seen as a threat, I think. And him being on the jury being like, Sage is the best. That helps. That helps a lot. I think Nate would be open to listening to that. I think that, you know, I think Alex is probably pretty solid in the camp of Sophie B. I think Alex is going to be a hard jury vote to sway if Sophie B is at the end.
Yeah, and you having something in common with Sophie being a past alternate, Jason MC, were the season's alternate. So what did you think of two people getting removed from the game 12 hours before?
You know, I've been telling people it's like a movie theater talk. Okay? You go to a movie, right? And the couple in front of you looks at each other. You're supposed to be watching the movie, right? But you're not interrupting them for that, right? The couple in front of you says like one word, right? One time, it's probably not a big deal, right? There's no game happening there. One word. Hi, bye. That's okay, fine. Oh, that was funny. Not a big deal. You start doing that a lot. Ha ha ha. Wasn't that so funny? Wasn't that so funny? Okay, now you might say something. If you're in a movie and two people are having a conversation, like a convo, you're going to be like, hey man, shut up. And then if they do it again, you're going to be like, hey, I'm going to go to the manager and get you thrown out. And then they do it again. No, dude, you're fucking out of here. What are you doing, stupid? Like, what did you think was going to happen? And, you know, I've heard rumblings from people that were out there that, like, it was a lot. It was a lot. They were talking a lot. And obviously they were on the same tribe. So I assume if they were talking that much, they figured out they were on the same tribe. And if they were pre-gaming and making up plans for who's going to go home, well, that's not on television. And ultimately, Survivor's a TV show. At the end of the day, they have to be able to film why people went home. And if they can't tell the story accurately of why people went home, then you've ruined the magic of Survivor. And they're not going to put someone out there who ruined the magic when they have Jason and MC, people who are awesome television, fun to watch, interesting. What an amazing puzzler in Jason. What an amazing athlete and an interesting confessionalist in MC, and also an interesting human. When, 5 months ago, MC hadn't even watched the show, 6 months before, never even seen the show. And then all of a sudden she's out there. And, I think fans clamor for people like that. They like people like that. And I think that it has to be a special type of person to be able to pull something like that off. And MC definitely a special type of person. And so when you have people like that waiting in the wings, don't give Survivor a reason. That's awesome.
Yeah, and clearly those two.
I also think it's kind of my fault, if I'm being honest. Like
your fault.
Maybe this is an ego. I think that I was the alternate for 46, and a lot of the people that were on the cast mentioned me in their pregame interviews. And I think that when that happened, they thought like I was doing a lot, and I really wasn't. I was like smiling at people, and I might say like a word here and there just to like get a reaction, because I only had 5 days, you know what I mean, to like enjoy playing Survivor, playing whatever version of Survivor I got. And I didn't know if I was going to come back the next year. I didn't know if they were going to invite me back. So I was going to enjoy every fucking second of it. I was going to wring out every single amount of joy I could, knowing that these people were going to go be on my favorite show ever, and I had an opportunity to interact with them, and I was going to try and make an impact. And God damn it, I did. And so I wonder if that ended up having some sort of influence on them of like, oh, okay, well, if he got away with that and, got back on, then maybe I can get away with more and play the game. But I, again, that's just probably because I have a massive ego.
Yeah, and clearly these two made the pregame interesting. Do you think they would have made the season more interesting?
I don't know. who knows? Like the what if questions are really, really tough. Do I think they would have been like more entertaining than MC and Jason? I don't know. I doubt it. MC and Jason are pretty cool. I think both of them probably would have ended up playing on 51 anyway, or 52. You know, they seem super fun, interesting people.
And how does being an alternate
like huge benefit for MC ultimately, because then she would have had a whole year to study Survivor. You know. I assume that's probably why she ended up in the alternate spot, is they thought like, she could do this year. She also could use a year to just like figure it out, like Sophie did. Sophie Segretti, on this season was an alternate. She sat next to me on the plane. Shout out Sophie. Thanks for the headphone splitter. And she, was excellent this season. Really clearly went home and worked out like crazy and came back an absolute challenge beast and was super, super fun to watch. Gamer.
And how does being an alternate change the way you play, whether it's your second time out there like you, or it's Jason MC, it's their first time out there? How does being an alternate change the way you play?
I think that if you go out your second time, and that's kind of the only perspective I can speak from, I learned a lot from my first alternate experience because they all talked about me. And so I got to watch game tape of like Tevin did a 1 minute long monologue about me in his pregame interview, talking about how I'm so well groomed and manicured and my hair's all curled up and coiffedy, and he's a snake charmer, but unlucky for him, I'm not a snake. That's my best Tevin impression. And I learned, okay, I don't need to do a whole lot, and I'm going to be noticed when there's 18 people around. I can keep my head down, and I'm still going to be noticed. So maybe during pregame, I'm going to tone it way down, and during the game, I'm going to tone it way down and see, like, I'm still going to get noticed. People are still going to get to talking to me. I don't need to be as aggressive as I maybe am in real life, and it's still going to happen for me. And so I learned a lot about the perspectives that people have about me, how I come across when I'm trying to be friendly and trying to just make a connection, that I might sometimes come across as a little sleazy or as like I'm up to something. And that influenced how honest I was in the game. I really did try to be as honest as possible and to work with people that were attracted to me rather than me trying to really attract them. Because I learned that there are some people that are not going to be attracted to you, and it takes a long time for them to come around. Say was an example of that I let Say kind of come around, work around to me, because I thought that she had this perspective on me that she didn't want to work with me, and I was right. And then, told Say the honest to goodness truth. I voted for you last night. Just straight up, I voted for you. And, Say respected that. I think Say ultimately at the end of that, we got split and then she went home, but I think she would have worked with me had she not ended up going home. But that's something that I ended up learning from the first season. It's like, you can't push people to like, you have to wait for them to come around on you.
And I know you've been to a few watch parties this season. Have you met any of this cast yet?
I met Steven this past weekend. I've met MC and Jason as well, and really enjoyed meeting Steven this last weekend at Over the Edge. It's a celebrity weekend of a bunch of different reality stars. They got, The Challenge, and they got Big Brother, and I got to meet Keanu, and I got to meet, now I'm blanking on the name. Is it Danielle? I got to meet Tiffany from Big Brother and The Challenge, and really had an amazing time with them. These, the cross section of all these amazing people, and they're all, gorgeous and fun to hang out with, and they all have personality, and they all got fucking stories, and really enjoyed this weekend. And on top of that, got to meet a bunch of fans. Like, such a cool event. They ran it so well. Shout out to Over the Edge Celebrity. If you're thinking about going next year, definitely go, because you get to spend a decent amount of time connecting with the fans, a good amount of time connecting with other reality people. So if you're a reality star, definitely do that. They raise a bunch of money for charity. It's really well organized and run. The hotel that they're at is really fun. It's a great party, and they run stuff really, really well. And so really enjoyed, especially meeting, like some of the people that I'd watched on television. Like, I watched Tiffany on the challenge. I watched Keanu on Big Brother a little bit. You know, I watched these people and to see them and how awesome they were. I watched the challenge a bunch, so got to meet, you know, a bunch of these challenge legends and got to, you know, see Jeremy's, you know, daywalker eyes in person, you know, and get transfixed by that man, and Horacio and Nerys, just all these cool people. It was fun. It was really awesome. Jerry Manthe.
Yeah.
I got to sit on a fucking panel with Jerry Manthe, Rupert, Sandra, Danielle DiLorenzo, Adam Klein. What the fuck am I doing on that panel? Like, on what planet? And, you know, and Carolyn's sitting there, and, like, you know, and Camilla's sitting there on the other side. Like, I don't know what I'm doing over here, but okay, sure, why not? That sounds fun. But yeah, it was cool. It's cool.
Yeah, I definitely missed out. I'm definitely going to try to go next year, because I really missed out at, you know, meeting everybody. So I definitely want to go next year.
Yeah. So, by the way, Reality Stars, if you're listening to this, I don't know how many do, but the email didn't. I didn't read the emails. I don't read my emails, because when you're on the show, it's like you just get inundated. Like, just 50 people a day before you even wake up have reached out to you on one medium or another minimum. And when you're on the show, it's like 500 people a day. And don't skip that email. That's an email you want to read. You want to respond to that. You want to go. It is very fun. It's a good time.
So I need to get on a reality show, and then they'll call me for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Worth the price of admission, man. The price of admission is not super expensive. It's definitely worth it. It's cool.
So let's wrap up on 49. Who's your winner pick at this point? 2 weeks out from the finale, or 1 week out?
Oh man. It's hard, because if I wasn't if I didn't have like 50 in my mind, right, I might be more willing to go away from Savannah and Rizzo, and I would probably pick someone like Steven. But here's the thing. I think a lot of people think that it's either Savannah or Rizzo because there are winners on other tribes. But that's not how it was in Heroes versus Villains. That's not how it was. Like, that's just not – that doesn't mean anything necessarily, right? It doesn't mean that they've picked the winner from this season. And I think Savannah and Rizzo have both done enough already to be chosen for season 50. Rizzo's been really entertaining, so fun, and a strategist that's being underestimated. Like, he's clearly being underestimated by his castmates for sure. So I could see him winning. Savannah, same thing. She's done enough. She's really entertaining. She provides a different type of person that hasn't been on the show in a long time. You know, like, people are comparing her to Parvati. I don't think that it's the same idea as Parvati. I don't actually buy that comparison. I don't know that who I would compare her to, and that's like kind of the highest compliment I can give somebody. So I could see Savannah being in a win condition. I really fell in love with Steven this past weekend, and so maybe I'm a little jaded by that, because I do think that if he sits at the end, he can make a really compelling case for that final tribal council, which makes me think like he's in danger, and he knows he's in danger. Like, he's going to have to pull a Rachel Lamont to get to the end in a way. Shout out Rachel. I don't know. I think Christina has a really tough time unless she can pull like almost like a Marianne or Gabler type final tribal council where, you know, we realize she's the winner of the season because she was always involved in everything or whatever. But, you know, misplaying the idol, like that's hard to come back from. And, you know, she did put on an excellent show with Savannah. I don't know if you saw Savannah's TikTok. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
The show that they put on together was just all for show. So that's a pretty impressive move there, being part of that or directing that or whatever. If you get rid of Savannah, you can say you directed it. That's kind of an interesting play there, but I don't know if that's enough to get her to win. So let's go with, and I didn't analyze Sage. Sage has a really wonderful ally. Like, having your number one on the jury and you not being responsible for them being over there is kind of ideal. Let's say, you know, Christina goes at fucking 6. You know, let's say Rizzo goes at 5. Do they put a losing finalist on? Maybe it's 5 and 4. Savannah loses fire making and Steven wins.
Maybe Steven knew you were coming on this podcast. That's why he schmoozed you over this weekend.
Yeah. I think, I think if you're playing the 50, like if you're playing 50 into your mind, I think it's Rizzo or Savannah. And at this point, I would go with Savannah just because I think that it's going to be hard for Rizzo to convince those people that he exercised agency when he's running around the island going cinema and RIZGOD. I don't know if he's doing that, not in confessional, but like he has a persona out there and he's kind of depending almost a la with Liz Cox or Liz Wilcox. I don't remember. Is it Liz Wilcox?
Yeah, Wilcox.
Yeah, Liz Wilcox. I just can't remember if it was Cox or Wilcox. Anyway, almost a la Liz to like, okay, at Final Tribal Council, I'm going to do the big reveal. Well, the problem with that strategy is what if they don't buy it? Like if they don't buy it, if you can't convince them in that hour and a half or 2 hour long Final Tribal Council, okay, bummer, you lose. But he's certainly been super involved in the strategy. He certainly knows the game. Like the kid definitely knows it. And he's done a wonderful job lowering his threat profile to the point where he has an idol and he's been sitting on it. Everybody knows it. And they're not really targeting him. And it's because they don't think that he can win. They think that they'd like to sit next to him. And if you look at the jury, I have a hard time believing Nate wants to give Rizzo $1 million. I have a hard time believing that, Jawan wants to give Rizzo $1 million. I have a hard time believing that MC wants to give Rizzo $1 million. That Alex wants to give him sitting next to other people. I have a hard time believing they want to give him the $1 million. So probably pick Savannah if we're including.
So let's get into your Survivor journey a little more. So what is your cast story? How did you end up in Survivor in the first place? How many times did you apply? And also tell us about how you were an alternate and all that.
I think we covered the alternate thing, but I'm happy to talk about it some more, maybe a different aspect of it. I started watching Survivor February 19th or 15th of 2020. Watched my first episode, watched season 19, leaned over to my friend 3 episodes in, like, I'm going on this show. Like, I can't wait to go on this show. And they were like, yeah, sure, go for it. Go nuts. Put in my first application in June of that year, heard nothing. Put in another application the following year, heard nothing, and then put in another application the following year after that. And that was the first time that I got contacted, went all the way through the process. And one of the questions they asked is like, you're a different dude. And it's like, yeah, my father had passed away. I had gone through, I'd gone to the mountaintop and like really changed a lot of who I was and what I was all about. And they saw that in the audition, I guess. They remembered me. I was maybe on their radar a little bit or something like that. And then, you go through this insane audition process. You meet with all the producers, you do all that stuff. And then they called me and they're like, we have good news and bad news. The good news is you're still in the running. The bad news is you're an alternate. And my reaction was like, that's not bad news. That's great news. And they were like, oh, why do you think that? I said, anybody who spends 5 days with me wants to spend a lot more days with me. So if you're telling me that I'm going to go out to Fiji for 5 days, then that means I'm going to be on 47 and 48 or 48, And they were like, we love the confidence. Sure. And the rest is kind of history. I went out there and really did enjoy my time as an alternate. I remember meeting with some of the people on production and them just being like, we know you're in a tough spot. And they kind of greeted me like I was, attending my own funeral. And I just was like, I don't know what you're talking about. You guys are giving me a massive advantage. And there is no way you're looking at this face and you're not going to regret not having me out here. Like, you're going to regret it. And obviously 46 is a banger season. It wasn't anything about 46. It was just my confidence in knowing that I can provide, I think, something that Survivor would want. The next part of that question was just like what the Survivor experience generally.
Well, I want to ask about the alternate because I talked to Tiffany from 41 last week, and she was also an alternate. So I'm wondering, and I asked Tiffany this also, why were Tiffany and you alternates in the first place? Like, why were you guys not on the main cast?
Embarrassment of riches. They just have amazing people. I mean, look at what happened on 46. Like you have these people who, by the way, I kind of like met the person that I think like took my spot if there is such a thing. I also think alternates have to be people that can kind of fill in on any tribe, right? So in some ways, I don't know if they've changed this in years past or what, but like in some ways, alternates kind of have to be like an everyman. They can kind of go anywhere, right? They can't be like having David as an alternate would be kind of weird, right? Because if David all of a sudden has to step in and someone like, I don't know, say blessed Cedric, but Cedric ends up getting hurt and David steps in. The change up is just massive, right? Like,
Yeah.
So I think that you have to be kind of like a middle of the road, kind of go in anywhere type person if there's anything in common. But I mean, dude, Survivor casting has so many people to choose from. 26,000 people apply, something like that. 20,000 people. I know some people apply twice. The number might be a little different, but still thousands of people apply and they have a bunch of people to choose from. And then they have a bunch of people in the pipeline that have been in the works for a while and then eventually get their shot. Someone like Mitch who's, been there for 10 years and then finally they give Mitch a shot. Kyle applied, I think 4 years earlier and finally got reached out to. Everyone's casting journey is so different. That's why when you see people say things like, "Oh, I've been applying for 5 years," and they kind of have a Debbie Downer attitude about it. It's like, oh well, listen, that means you've examined yourself 5 times, or should. If you're going to apply for Survivor, you better examine your life. You better examine who you are. You better know what stories make you you, and you better drive at those stories. You better know how to tell them. You better understand all of the different ways in which you could get people interested in your story and who you are. And I think there's a contingent of people on the interwebs or Survivor fans that think you have to have a sob story in order to get on Survivor. What was my sob story? I didn't have a sob story. I had a good story about my parents. I certainly had a good story about being a speech and debate coach. I had a bunch of good stories about myself. You have to have good stories about yourself. You don't have to have a sob story. Like and by the way, every single person on earth has gone through something. Like you've gone through something. Now, the question is, do you know how to tell that story? Because if you don't know how to tell that story and you're not comfortable talking about yourself, well, guess what, stupid? Yeah, you're not going to make it on Survivor. And you may not like the fact that these people have gone through things and they're willing to talk about themselves. You might not like the fact that Christina cried about losing her mom. But that means that you're a piece of shit. That's what that means. That means you're a bad person. And you should look in the fucking mirror and ask yourself, why am I so mad about someone talking about losing their mom, having the courage to talk about having lost someone important to them and how this experience has made them realize how much they miss that person? What part of my soul is missing that has happened to me? What would my 8-year-old self say to me being like, oh God, this on my screen again? Fuck you. Get over yourself. Go to therapy. Pick up a book. Touch some grass, you fucking weirdos. On the interwebs. You weirdos. Get out of your mom's basement and go do something with your life. And write in a journal and take some deep breaths. Because it doesn't look good on you to be this bitter that someone's sharing their personal story. I worry about your friends. I worry about your loved ones. God forbid they want to share a story with you after you have a reaction like that to someone sharing something that deeply personal and being willing to share it so that other people can heal from it too. So there's my little rant about look, Survivor casting is different. And if you don't know how to tell any story, you're not going to get cast. If you don't know what your stories are, you're not going to get cast. Jeff said it. Jeff said it not that long ago. I don't know if it was on the On Fire podcast or an interview or whatever. He's like, if you don't know who you are, Survivor's not going to cast you. You better know who you are. And what that means is do you know your stories? Do you know how to frame those stories in an effective way that people will want to listen? And do you know how to tell those stories in a way that's worthy of being listened to? And I think that was actually the big difference between my first year application and my final year application. I learned how to tell my story. I learned how to frame it properly. I had healed enough to tell my story in a way that was interesting and also worthy of listening and also vulnerable. And doing that type of introspection, I think, is what a good audition tape makes you do. If you make an audition tape and at the end of it, you're like, damn, I learned some shit about myself. You made a good audition tape, right? And this is certainly a huge shift from where the show was, right? The show, 10 years ago was at a point where if you made a good audition tape and people were like, I hate that guy, or I love that person more than anything, that might be a good audition tape, but that's not what they want to put on CBS at 8 p.m. on Wednesday nights anymore. It's a family show. So orient yourself that way, and that, makes a difference.
And let's get into the game. So once the game started, you were part of the Strong Players Alliance who wanted to be honest and all that. Was this your plan going in to be part of this kind of alliance playing this way?
No, I mean, listen, it's so funny how much grief, some people, very few people, but whatever, few people give on the internet about like the Strong, honest alliance. Guys, we know that we're lying, but we're gonna say it's the. What are we gonna say? We're in the Strong Liars Alliance. Like, what do you mean? Like that's not how it works. You can't be like, yeah, we're in the Strong Liars Alliance. Of course, the branding is going to be the Strong Honesty and Integrity Alliance. You can't be like, we're in the Strong, we're going to lie to you and stab you in the back alliance, because then we're looking skeptical of you, right? So, actually, Drew Basile from 45 was on an interview on the Rap podcast talking about the moral establishment, like the establishment of morals each season is very different. And it's all made up when you get out there. That's the part of establishing the society, right? So you establish the morals and the ethics each season on Survivor. And he did a really amazing job of explaining what their season's ethic was, right? If you go against that ethic, you go home. Understanding of that, and Drew had a pretty profound impact on my game with that statement because I listened to it before I went out there. Understanding of that when I got out there, seeing that, okay, wait a second, this Strong Persons Alliance is really forming. I already have pretty strong ties with Eva and Joe. I think my way through this game is with the Strong Persons Alliance as the strategist. Like, cool, let's put all these strong people together. I don't got that. Like, I don't got it like that. And so I can kind of stand out within this Strong Persons Alliance, right? And then at the end, I'll be able to kind of articulate a unique game, even if I'm sitting next to strong people. And so I didn't plan on necessarily playing that type of game. But then also when you're confronted with someone like Joe Hunter and, one of the coolest guys on planet Earth, the sweetest man you could possibly meet, a guy who, father to 2 kids, like an incredible, activist for his sister, like for domestic violence. Like he's got the fireman, he's got the fucking smile, he's got the pectorals. It's like, okay, wait a second. And then, we spend 10 years together out there, right? That every day you spend on Survivor, I feel like is about 6 months of time that you would have spent together outside the island. We were on the same island the entire time, all 23 days. And you have Eva, who's, this sweetheart who was super vulnerable on national television. And, you definitely consider her to be like, you look at her like a super honest person. And okay, do I think I have a pretty good shot at beating them at a final tribal council? Like, I think we have a decent shot at each other, and maybe I could sit next to them and pull it off. And okay, then why am I going to turn my back on them? And I said this, in my confessional that they aired, which is like, okay, am I delusional to think that I can beat Joe and Eva? No, I don't think that I am. I think that I can articulate how my game separated from theirs, and then why vote them out? What's the point of voting out your number one ally? Just to vote out your number one ally. We had just seen that on 46 and how poorly that went for them. You vote out your number one and then you go next. So why would I subscribe to that meta of the game when that meta of the game doesn't serve me? And then ultimately, it took a giant move, a huge lie and this, and also a fraying of the relationship for 2 hours between Joe and I, which is when that lie was slipped in there. And, and then my inappropriate reaction to Joe when he came back from having dealt with losing his sister and burying the hatchet there. And my reaction was like, let's talk game. And he was like, the last thing I want to do is talk game right now. Get out of my face. And so, kind of a perfect storm for me to end up walking down away after having had my torch snuffed. But yeah, I think that answered your question.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So I think Kyle had a similar perspective to you that he could bring them to the end to beat them. So did you predict at the time that you were voted out that Kyle was going to be the one to go on to win the game?
I think I said Camilla was going to go on to win the game, but I never would have predicted that Camilla would be so god awful at making fire. So just embarrassingly bad. And I wasn't as mad throughout the game as I was at Camilla when she couldn't make fire and beat Eva. She kept, by the way, if you're going to go on Survivor and you make the shavings, don't move the pile before you get the flame. Camilla, if you watch, she's making the shake. Then she moves her pile. Then she tries to strike. Well, what happens is that flint, that magnesium that you scraped off, it falls to the bottom. And so you don't have any magnesium to catch the spark. And so she's doing this, and I'm pulling my hair out because I would have voted for, I might have voted. It depends. It depends on what happens at Final Tribal. But a lot of people on the jury were pulling for Camilla so that we would have a pretty awesome, amazing Final Tribal council. So, and then, some of the stuff that got removed in the edit about what happened at the Final Four fire making, was concerning. That I was like, okay, cool. Well, I'm probably not voting there. And, having Camilla still in the mix would have been someone that I was voting for.
So how do you rank Kyle versus the other winners? How do you think he is as a winner?
Comparison is the thief of joy, my friend. I think he's the worst winner in the history of Survivor. No, I'm kidding. But that's a good tweet, That's. No, I think.
I'll clip that.
Yeah, clip that. Kyle's an amazing winner. I mean, he played an incredible game. He played a lot. One of the things that I said when I voted for him was he played the game that I wanted to play. He played the middle of the road pretty well. He definitely had a lot of knowledge throughout the game, and he represented that knowledge really well at Final Tribal Council. He really understood where he was at in comparison to others, and he also made the right apologies, the right claims at Final Tribal Council of the game that he played. He took ownership over a lot of things that he needed to take ownership of, and he didn't take ownership for stuff that wasn't his. And so as far as ranking him amongst just New Era winners, overall winners?
You can do New Era, yeah.
I mean, I think Rachel Lamont is probably the best winner of the New Era. I found Jam Jam's win pretty incredible because I think people like him just get voted out so often, right? Like having that type of personality gets you voted out pretty often. So I think right there at that number 2, number 3 spot,
And you had Kyle clocked in the pre-merge that you wanted to vote him out. So how differently does the game go if Kyle's voted out in that spot instead of Thomas?
I think Thomas probably ends up turning and stabbing me in the back eventually. That guy is, he's a gamer, And so I don't know. It's hard to play the woulda, coulda, shoulda thing. So imagine this, right? Like, let's say Kyle goes home there, right? Instead of Thomas. Well, on the tribe swap, let's say it's me, Thomas, Camilla, right? Me, Thomas, Camilla, David, Mary, and Cedric. Right?
Yeah.
I probably go home. I probably end up being the first juror there because they probably don't want to get rid of Thomas. They probably see me as a bigger threat. And now I have someone with me that I'm probably going to start trying to game with to try and maybe convince Mary and whatever to go with Cedric. And Cedric's a free number, so why not just go with the free number? Well, the reason I survived that vote was because after they voted out Thomas, I went to Kyle and Camilla and rehabbed that relationship. You'll see a moment where I go, this is the 4. Me, Kyle, Camilla, and Joe were the 4 that were running a lot of the game. And they kept me instead of Cedric because of the promises and the relationship that we had made on that beach. Whereas that probably isn't the case if the roles are reversed, right? If Kyle goes and Thomas stays. Who knows? Who knows how it ends up going for me there?
And you were the third person.
Just a quick note for future players. And past players. Don't play the woulda, coulda, shoulda game. Don't do that. I'm happy to do it here because it's a podcast. But at home with friends, with other players, when you're at these events at OTE, stop playing the woulda, coulda, shoulda game. Don't do it. It's just torture. It doesn't give you anything. You don't leave the woulda, coulda, shoulda game going, oh, I feel better. You leave the woulda, coulda, shoulda game being like, oh, I lost $1 million again. And it's like, don't torture yourself. There is no woulda, coulda, shoulda. There is no actual thing that you could do differently. It's just not worth it. Also, here's a fun fact that I will give you. Okay, here's a fun one. Kyle says the idol was in my shoe, and my shoe was in my backpack. Right?
Yeah.
He says. When I put Kyle's bag back, or when Thomas puts Kyle's bag back down after I had gone through it, Kyle's shoes are next to the bag. Okay. So I lost my mind when I rewatched and saw that.
He lied to you.
Liar. He might have thought they were in the bag and they weren't in the bag, but they weren't in the bag. I don't think.
So you were the third person to play the game after Shireen and Venus. What did it mean to represent persons on Survivor?
Yeah, certainly weighed pretty heavily. Especially being the first. Persian women and Persian men definitely have two different stereotypes, if you will. A lot of the stereotypes around Persian men are like aggressive, maybe potentially controlling, hyper jealous. And these things weighed on me in a way because I didn't want to come across that way. I didn't want to come across as the angry brown guy. And that also means that, like, when I get a little angry, people are like, wow, you're so mad. And I know that I want to control that because I don't want people to have that reaction to me, because I think that's a threat to me going home is, oh, he's an asshole. And so how did that weigh on me? I understood the stereotypes that exist out there, the implicit biases that people carry, and my own implicit biases as well. And so that made certainly a huge impact on me. And I get messages to this day, like maybe once a week, twice a week, of like, hey man, like I watched and I'm Persian and like it was so cool to see you represent us and be fun and funny and like you represented us so well. Like that stuff means the fucking world to me. I have I have watch parties in Orange County, and the last couple watch parties I've had, this kid who comes and he's half Persian and he dresses like Jeff Probst. And he comes to the watch parties and he like hides idols around the watch parties, which are super cool, and people can find them for a prize. And it's been a really awesome thing to be the first Persian man to ever play Survivor, and one of the first full Middle Eastern men. I think that there have been people that maybe have been like half or whatever. I might be wrong on first Middle Eastern ever, but like one of the first few Middle Eastern men to ever play Survivor. And yeah, that's certainly a weight. For sure. There's a weight there and also a joy there. And I played with a lot of joy. I played with I tried to have a lot of references in my game, from, referencing Shane's BlackBerry with carving Probsty on the tree to referencing Penner, 2 or 3 times with the like start in the challenge episode where I went home, to the oh waka as I'm like walking down the path, referencing his whistling with the hat thing. And a lot of other things, from obviously like even Oh Waka as a reference to like past survivors. And yeah. So tried to play the game with a lot of joy so that people didn't think like, brown people are just angry.
So who do you keep in touch with from your season?
Anybody who wants to keep in touch with me. I got no bad blood with nobody. There are people that it's just like, yeah, like we're, we don't live in the same place. You're like off raising a kid or doing your thing or whatever. Like, we're just not catching up every day, but I love everybody on my cast. I will say, like, Joe and I have more than buried the hatchet. We talk almost every day, every other day, something like that. I love my boy, Joe Hunter. Thomas and I obviously live close to each other. And so we try and see each other, when we can, and we catch up pretty often. Bianca and I, talk, and Star, again, anybody who like wants to reach out and we have a relationship, like I'm happy to talk to them. There are people that I just have never talked to as well. Like I've never talked to Justin. I think I've exchanged like 3 text messages with him, but we never met. Like we never met on the island. Right? We had pregame together where we don't talk, and then he was gone before I got to meet him. So never really met him. And then there are people that are just like, you don't want to talk to me. It's fine.
Yeah, I was going to bring up Justin next, but him and Say just keep beefing on Twitter. So I was going to say, is your cast close as a whole or not really?
I think the people that are close are close. Oh, actually, you know what? I want to say Stephanie Berger's name real quick. Stephanie Berger's one of the coolest human beings on planet Earth. Okay. During her boot episode, like the first episode of the season, she decided to invite anybody who wanted to come from our cast so that they could celebrate Mardi Gras with her in New Orleans. And not only did she do this, she helped us book the Airbnb. And then she helped plan all the different parades that we were going to go to, along with Owen, who also lives in New Orleans. Planned all this stuff, got us outfits to go to these parades in so that we could like feel special and cool. We all dressed as Jeff Probst. And She set us up with all these different things. And like, think about how badass that is, that in a moment where you are, pretty devastated, you wanted to go do this amazing thing. You had these high hopes. You go home first. You have to deal with the internet, which is not fucking kind to people who go home first. And to do that, just one of the coolest things that you could possibly do. So I keep in touch with Stephanie, pretty often as well. What do I think of Justin and Say? I don't give a shit about either. Like, I don't know about the drama. I saw the Twitter thing. I didn't even really get it. I don't really know what the hell's going on there. I wasn't really paying attention about what Justin was responding to, if he was responding to anything or if it was just out of nowhere. Like, I don't know the tea. So if you want to spill it, I can give you my thoughts.
Well, I know you got to go in a few minutes. The last thing I wanted to talk about was Survivor 50. So obviously you have three of your castmates, Joe and Camilla and Kyle. So what do you think of them being on 50, and how do you think they're going to do?
I think they have a tough spot because that's the last season that everybody watched, and they got to finish watching that season before they go out there. So I think they have like a kind of tough road to hoe in order to get very far. I think they saw Kyle and Camilla's game in a way, and seeing them both out there, I think people are not going to want to see them have time to get together again. I think Joe has kind of an interesting position because they saw him get to the end being, in a way, really loyal to one person, and that person like wasn't even himself in a way, and then not have that. He didn't kill Eva at Final Tribal Council, and he could have. He could have destroyed Eva at Final Tribal Council, okay? And he really didn't. He really didn't do that. He didn't have that destruction in him to go, okay, I dragged her here. I was the one that was strategizing. I was the one that was directing it. And I let her think that she was, but I was the one. He didn't do that, right? They shared the thing. And so I wonder if that might actually help him with 50. I wonder if people might want to work with him because of that. And so I'm interested to see like what ends up happening with Joe out there. How he plays the game and how it changes. And this is different, right? These are people that are gamers. These aren't first timers. They're not out there for the wow of it all. They're out there to do business.
And what about you in Survivor 50? Were you called at all for that?
Nope. Not called at all. They did. I shouldn't say that. Casting reached out to me and was very, very, very kind to me about this whole entire process. They said that they loved me, and I was very happy. And I loved being on Survivor. Not being on 50 certainly is something that I wanted to do for sure. But I mean, come on, man. They have 3 incredible people from my season. Putting 4 on my season from there would have been an insane thing. And so, come on, Joe Hunter's like unbelievable. Like, Kyle and Camilla are awesome. Like, incredible television. Like, 50 is in good hands. And I know the fans hate 50. I like the fans, the quote unquote fans. Let me say the quote unquote fans.
In the hands of the fans.
Yeah, I understand that there's no way that casting could do something that's going to make everybody happy, right? Everybody has gripes. There's only 24 spots. There's 700 people to choose from. And really, like, there's like 150 people that would have been great. You can make a case for a lot of people to go beyond 50 to make the season great. But they can only cast so many people. Like, even 24 is going to be hard to tell all these stories and get rid of all these people. And so, the commentary on the cast and not liking them and whatever, it's just like, give me a fucking break. You guys complain too much.
Were there any big misses in the cast for you that you wanted to see that aren't on?
I mean, selfishly, I would have loved to see Jonathan Penner because he's my favorite player. I would have loved to see that. I think that he has an interesting thing that comes in the game. I based a lot of my game on Jonathan Penner's game. I tried to play as much like him as possible, and like my version of that. So that would have been cool to see. I would have liked to see Jerry Manthe out there. I actually got to meet Jerry this weekend. It was really, really fun. Danielle DiLorenzo was really fun to meet this weekend. I don't know. There's just so many good people out there. these people, like even people that you might not have even expected to have even gotten a call for 50 would have been incredible out there. There's the edit has to nerf certain people that would have been superstars otherwise. Like, it's the way that it goes.
And the last thing I want to ask you, I have a trivia question for you. Can you name the 4 seasons to have contestants return for another season before their original season aired? So you mentioned Savannah and Rizzo. So that's one of the 4.
Russell.
Yep.
So season 20.
Yep.
Amanda.
No, China was airing before they went out for Micronesia.
Fuck. Was it Michaela and Zeke?
Yep, that's the one. You got one more.
Oh, it must have been Blood versus Water 2?
Nope. Well, that one was only newbies, so.
Oh, so Blood versus Water 1.
No.
No. Is it 38? Who won 38? Was on 37?
Nope.
Not 38? Fuck. Wait.
I thought you'd get there really quick.
Bruce?
Nope.
No. Fuck. Who?
Philippines when Malcolm was on Fans vs. Favorites.
Yeah, I was never getting there. Yeah, never getting there. For sure. For sure not getting there. Damn. Okay, cool. Yeah, makes sense. God damn, Malcolm was great television, huh? That would have been fun to see. Would have been cool to see.
Yeah.
You know who I wanted on 50 was Fabio. I would have loved to see Fabio out there. Because
I don't think they've ever called him, so.
I don't think so either, but I just would love to see older Fabio for some reason. I don't know. I fucking love that guy. Still haven't met him.
So what's next for you, Shauhin? Where can people find you online, and what's next for you?
So I run a coaching business. I coach people's communication. If you upgrade your communication, you upgrade your life. You can find me on my website, shauhindavari.com. And really the idea is if you find your voice, meaning you know the stories that you want to tell about yourself, you know how to tell those stories, you need to heal your voice. You need to figure out, okay, cool. What do I need to fix and what do I need to frame better in order to tell these stories in a way that people will listen? And then you need to use your voice. You need to figure out how to tell those stories in an interesting way, in a dynamic way. What is it about storytelling from great storytellers that really gets people to listen? How to be persuasive, how to inform an audience, how to keep them on their toes the entire time. What is it that makes a dynamic storyteller, persuasive speaker? Ideally, the people that are interested in this are the people that will really gain a ton from becoming an expert level communicator. Everybody benefits when they improve their communication. But yeah, a lot more on that is coming very, very soon. Everything is kind of changing for me here in January. So stay tuned. If you are interested in fixing and upgrading your communication, a big launch happening here January 1 of next year. And then some other really cool projects that are coming in February that I'm really, really excited about.
And doing that will help you tell your story to the Survivor casting producers, right? That'll help.
I mean, listen, if you know how to tell your story, it won't hurt. But that's not really what I'm doing here. I'm trying to help people that are, looking to upgrade their communication so that they can really take their careers to the next level, take their lives to the next level. If you're an engineer and you don't know how to talk in a meeting, well, you're not getting chosen to go to the conference, right? But if you're the engineer that knows how to talk in meetings, you're the one that's getting selected to go to the conference. You're the one that's in front of everybody. If you got brilliant ideas at work, but you don't know how to articulate yourself, then you're not going to get those things done. And certainly if you don't know how to tell your story, you're not getting on Survivor. But also, you're not getting somewhere with a significant other. If you don't know how to talk about yourself, if you don't know how to speak about yourself, your dates are going to suck too. And so upgrade your communication, you upgrade your life. And that's really the thing that I'm trying to do. I'm trying to upgrade people's ability to communicate. And it's not just with others. Part of what I do, and I think maybe the thing that might separate me from others, is I work on your intrapersonal communication as well. How you talk to yourself, developing that conversation, everything from writing in a journal to breathwork, meditation, these things, these tools to really get people to heal and understand the right frame for how to tell their stories and how to talk to other people. That's really the thing that I enjoy doing more than anything. That's been my job for the past decade. I've done it at a really high level for the speech and debate team, and I offer it as a private service as well.
Yeah, so everybody should definitely check that out. So Shauhin, thank you so much for coming on. It's a pleasure to catch up with you and get your insights in the game, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you do next.
Thanks so much, man. I appreciate it, and I had a blast on here. I know this is a Big Brother crowd, and so just know that I love Big Brother, and oh my God, I would never play that game after talking to some of these people and hearing about what they went through, man. That shit is insane. All right, bye, everybody. Have a good one.